Hi everyone, I'm Anopub and welcome to this Tomb Raider speedrun tutorial. This intro video, besides the first level, is applicable to both glitched and glitchless. And before getting started, I will assume that you know the controls, such as these ones here, like how to do everything, at the very least. If you don't, you can always play Lara's Home, and that should teach you just fine. I recommend having casually beaten this game at least once, but that's not technically necessary, so that's up to you. The platform and version of the game doesn't really matter which one you want to run, but there are some differences you probably want to know. The PAL version of the game runs about 5 frames slower, so when you look at the gameplay, it's very obviously slow. I don't recommend this because of it. The console versions of the game have harsher saves since you can only save at the end of each level and at save crystals. So for things like practice and so forth, it could be a little bit harder. On the Saturn, there are a little bit minor level differences, but I'll get to that when we get to those levels. Overall, though, it doesn't really matter. I am running on a PC, patched with the ATI patch. Highly recommend this version of the game. The ATI patch basically makes the game more compatible with modern operating systems. It makes it run in a regular window rather than using DOSBox. You can change some things for testing. However, there are some things you should know. First of all, the saves are not compatible with the original version of the game, and also you can't hold grab at the end of each level or it'll crash, but I'll get to that when we get to the levels. Now, doesn't matter what platform version, you have to choose a resolution or an aspect ratio. So my resolution is 1920 by 1080, so my aspect ratio is 16 by 9. You're probably running that as well, or 4 by 3, but if your aspect ratio is not 16 by 9, again, just some minor differences on some lineups later on in the game, but everything still works fine, just for you to know. So for controller and keyboard, it doesn't matter. If you're on a PC and want to use a controller, that's fine. I'm currently using a PS3 controller, and I'll have my inputs on screen. If you don't know what the PS3 controls are in terms of Tomb Raider, I'll have a map below showing the connection. Now, to get my PS3 controller working, I had to use a program called SCP Toolkit to detect the controller, and then you have to use a program like Xpatter or Anti-Micro, etc. to map the keys to actual keyboard keys for Tomb Raider to detect. So overall, it doesn't matter, but if you're using a controller on PC, it just takes a little bit more work to get going. For a timer, I highly recommend Live Split, but it's technically not necessary. On PC, I do recommend it though, especially because we have an auto splitter. It splits at the beginning of the game, end of each level, and at the end of the game for you. So, it's automatic, it's convenient, it's easy to install, but again, it's not necessary. The basics. This basic section will cover basic movement, guns, and saving and loading. And I will assume that you will have gone through this section and learned these things before learning anything else, especially the first level. So, movement. We have to walk very slow, very precise. You can't fall off edges. You should know this from running the game. Then we have basic run, a little bit less precise, a little bit less slow. You have standing jump. Now, when I say standing jump, we generally refer to this as standing forward jump, like this. We don't mean like a neutral jump like this. So standing jump is slightly faster than regular run, but it's less precise because you can't stop anywhere with jumping. And then we have swimming, slightly faster than standing jump, turn very quickly, something to know. And then we have running jump. This is about 50% faster than the regular run. It's faster than every other option. We'll use it throughout the entire run, for most of the run, of course, because every jump saves a bunch of time. Now, there's also some other movement options like side flip, side step, but I'm going to only cover some special ones. First is the dive. So If you don't know how to do the dive, you just need to hold walk while doing a standing jump or a running jump. Like this is a standing dive, and this is a running dive. Now we don't use this too often in a run, but the times we do, it's really important. So just know how to do it, basically. And finally, we have the roll. Roll is pretty special, but we'll cover that more in the advanced section. Just know a few things. First of all, when you move with roll, since you move forward and you turn around, it's not just turning around. The distance you move forward is approximately 1 tile. Assuming like flat ground and no geometry blocks are way, of course. And you can also roll at any time you're on the ground. Basically, any time you're on the ground, assuming you're not, using a keyhole. Let's just say. So even if I stumble, do a roll right away. That's very important. Now, guns. Very basic, just to make sure everyone knows. When you're locked onto a target holding shoot or action, you need to let go to change targets. Otherwise, you're shooting a corpse for very long. Okay, and there are also 6 reasons why you might take out your guns in the run. So the first one's obviously shoot, but the second and third is checking health and ammo. If you have guns other than your pistols out, your ammo's top right and your health is top left, checking them could help with, if you want to use a med, pick out ammo, things like that. Now the guns also let you zoom out a little bit like this. As you can see, you get a little bit more vision, not mandatory, but it's just nice sometimes. 5th reason, you also turn faster. So if you hold right, for example, you can see Lara start slowly turning and then pivoting very quickly if you hold it for a little bit. But with guns out, you just pivot very quickly right away. And the final reason is unlocking or resetting the camera. As you can see with this lever, it turns on and off this pendulum. If I press guns at any point, it'll just cancel cutscene and reset back to Lara. And if I hold gun, it just completely doesn't show me. If you hold on to guns, you have to be careful of doing that on keyholes, such as this one. Keyholes is anything that basically isn't a lever, so if you're putting in a key, an idle, a cog, it doesn't really matter. If you hold guns, the trigger from that keyhole won't work. As you can see here, the door didn't open. To fix this, you just put away your guns and go back to the tile. You need to be on the tile without your guns and it will redo that trigger. Now, a quick way to avoid that, although I guess it's kind of obvious, is simply don't hold guns when you're doing a keyhole, but press it right as the camera or action finishes, such as this. So now I have my guns out as soon as possible, but the trigger still goes, so the door still opens. We have saving and loading. So on keyboard, there's shortcuts F5 and F6 for quick save and quick loads. Normally you save, you open up menu, scroll down, go to save or load. It's kind of slow, but with quick save and quick load, it just opens it up right away. So that's a little bit of a time save. I recommend that, having access to that if you're on controller. Just have your keyboard nearby, ideally. Another thing about saving is when you save, you have the passport closing, as you saw there. So this game saves approximately, or it finishes saving approximately when the passport's completely closed. The animation is done. So be careful if you're in a rush. Let's just say you're saving and you want to quit the game. Make sure the passport's closed, things are finished. Otherwise, your game might not have saved. And one final thing is if you change your save files around, in here, so these are my current saves. If I change these files in my game folder, I need to reload the game, otherwise these will appear to be the same. Okay, now advanced section. This section isn't technically mandatory. You could skip them if you want. However, I do recommend checking these out if you have the time, because there are tips, techniques, tricks that will help throughout the entire run. There's 2 sections, the slope bugs and corner bug, that obviously doesn't apply to glitchless, but the rest of them do. And of course all of them apply to glitched. There's 3 sections I have marked with an exclamation mark: corner bug, stumbles and cancels, grabs and fake grabs. They're a little bit more in depth, you might want some more running experience before checking them out, but the rest of them I definitely highly recommend. But it's up to you if you want to skip and go to caves or listen here. So, slope bugs. Slope bugs are pretty common in this game. The general idea is that there's a wall, such as the one in front of me, and there's a slope, such as the one I'm standing on. And basically we're going to jump into the wall and teleport on top. In this case we can just climb it, but in some cases you can't. So this trick is mandatory for the glitched run, and even for cases like this, it's still faster if you can get a fast slope bug. So anyway, the general setup is, you know, run like be on the wall, then face parallel with the wall. Now take one side step away from the wall, face perpendicular to the wall. Now look at the slope. So this slope is going up slightly to the left. So we want my angle to be slightly left, like this. Now you do a standing jump into the wall and we'll teleport on top, like this. Now there was a stumble at the top. We can cancel that by pressing roll. The stumble is about 2 seconds of no movement, but if we press roll, ideally we get the perfect one, like this. We don't stumble at all. You want to time the roll approximately when she hits the wall, but it just comes with time. Overall, the most important thing to know is just the general setup of one side step away, find the right angle, just jump into the wall. There's many different variations of the slope bug. Many of them have very small differences, but most of them are similar to this one. So for any specific hard ones or different ones, I'll go over them in the levels that they appear in. Otherwise, just know this general setup. Now the level cheat's very easy. Obviously it's not allowed in the run, but it's good to just test and so forth. It's one walk forward, is one walk back, 3 circles, doesn't matter which way, and then a standing jump forward. And you just get to the next level, and of course it's nice for testing, as I said. If you don't have saves ready, whatever, it's just good to know. Now, corner bug. This one I do have to recommend. I mean, you can watch it if you want, but if you're not at this part in the glitched run, it could be a little bit hard because you really want to be practicing while you watch this, but it's up to you. So for a corner bug, generally speaking, again, there's lots of variations, but this is a very common one. There's a pillar here. We want to be in the corner with our right foot slightly to the right of the pillar. As you can see, it's a little bit pushed out. We look approximately 45 degrees, jump up twice, we'll teleport to the top. Now there's 3 common mistakes that have easy backups rather than just resetting the whole thing. Now first one is when your right foot is too much to the left. Here it's not past the pillar at all. In fact, yeah, it's very left. So if we try 45 here, our angle is going to be pushed right, like this. But no need to reset, we just need to face the wall again, and as you can see, we are actually being pushed closer to the perfect position. So in this case, this is actually perfect, we can go for it. Jump twice, and we're good. Now sometimes you might have to do that twice or something like that. Your position might not be very perfect, but the idea is you're getting pushed closer to the better position, so don't need to reset the whole thing. Second common mistake is when your right foot is too much to the right. Go for a good angle like this one. What happens is you get embedded in the wall, but you're not teleported to the top. But if you press left side step or hold it, you move forward. So I'm going to make a save here. Now there's a slow backup and a fast backup from this position. The slow backup is simply using this left side step to go all the way to the end of the pillar. And we will teleport to the top without touching anything else. Now the fast one is basically doing that, but making the end of the pillar the corner closest to the camera right now. So we'll change our angle like this, and then now instead of left side step, we right side step. Of course, which side step you do depends on which corner you're going to, but That's faster, but it's a little bit more risky. If you don't get the angle right, you'll get kicked out. So it's just up to you from that point on. Now, the third common mistake is, again, it often happens when your right foot is too much to the right. And let's say you go like this. No. What happens is Laura's position gets completely kicked out like this. Now again, don't reset, just face forward as if the pillar extends towards you, and then just sidesteps towards the pillar like this. And in almost every single case, you'll be in perfect position from here, and then you can go for it. Jump twice, teleport to the top. So those backups are pretty nice. They're faster than setting it up again and then hoping you get it the second time. Now, combat. For most ranged enemies and some melee enemies, the general basic strategy is very easy. Simply try to always be behind them. I'm not going to shoot him actually, I'm going to just show you how long. So as you can see, I can go for quite a while without taking much damage at all. And doing this strategy, you can really increase the time that you live against these enemies. And if, of course, normally I would be shooting him if I'm fighting an enemy like this one. For melee enemies, I said some of them work, but when there's multiple of them or certain ones, it's just really hard. So it can be very difficult to do it on them. I'm not going to show that here, but just know, especially for the later level enemies, sometimes it could work. One final thing about combat though is Laura's field of vision. So she has approximately, one thing I want to talk about is rolling into enemies. Sometimes you can get stuck like I just did there, and they can freely shoot you. So be careful of doing that when trying to get around them. But yeah, regarding her field of vision, it's approximately 180 degrees. So as you can see here, I'm seeing Pierre when he's right beside me, but any more than that, and I'll lose kind of his track of him. So that's just something to know. As your movement gets better, you can utilize these more. Stumbles and cancels. Now, as you may know, when you fall from a great distance, you get a large stumble. I mentioned this a little bit briefly, but you can't move for about 2 seconds. However, there's also a small stumble, such as when you jump. See, I can't move forward for a small amount of time. Now, for small stumbles, you can easily cancel them by just doing a standing jump forward. So as you can see, I'm just continuously move rather than just not moving at all. For large stumbles, it's a little bit more tricky. So first of all, if you do get a large stumble, or this also applies to small stumbles, you can change the way you face, even though you can't move. You just need to hold forward and then left or right. So hold forward, left, right. See, I'm changing my facing even before I can move. So that's useful. Now there are 3 common cancels that we do. First one is an action cancel. This isn't a very good example here, but I just show it anyway. So if you hold grabs as if you're going to do an action, such as a keyhole, a lever, an item pickup, when you're going to stumble, instead of stumbling, you'll do those actions. So not the best example, and I'll explain one in the next section, but action cancel. So instead of stumbling, I pulled the lever. That's the most easy cancel, but it's also very situational because you need something for Lara to use action on. The second cancel is roll cancel. It's basically what it implies we're just going to use roll when we stumble, like this. You can either hold roll or press it when you stumble. It's up to you. It's when you do on an edge of a ledge like this, you just get kicked out, and it's as if you didn't stumble because you just continuously move forward. One quick thing about this, in basics, I covered roll is about 1 tile. However, she does the turning approximately around, I would say maybe like 40% or so of her roll. So from here, if you rolled here, you will get off the ledge, but you will be facing the wrong way, as you can see here. So let's say you stumbled in that position I was just in, like here, you'll be facing the wrong way. But you do get to move, so just be wary of that one. And finally, we have grab cancels. That's the hardest one. But first, so when you fall and get a big stumble, at some point Lara will put her arms up, and you can't really do anything at that time. You won't take inputs basically. As you can see here, look at her arms, and they go up now, right? So to cancel certain stumbles, oops, this for grab cancel, you fall a height where you don't take damage, but you still get the big stumble, of course. So for example, if I do it like this, I get a big stumble, but I don't take any damage. So to cancel this one, I need to press grab right before she puts her arms up. Now this isn't a very tall fall, so you might not notice the arms raised that well, but I'll show you that I can cancel it like this. Right? So here I got a small stumble rather than a big one. And as I mentioned, we normally cancel that with a standing jump, so that's a lot better than 2 seconds of no movement. And I'll show, let's say, an early grab here. It won't cancel it, so you really need to time it right before she puts her arms up. Of course, the timing comes with time, but that's a really nice one of, instead of 2 seconds no movement, you just continuously. Now we have grabs and fake grabs. So of course, if I run into this, I'm going to stumble. So I was briefly mentioning in the last section, if you're going to run into a wall, you can actually just press or hold grab to get into the grab animation, and you will avoid the stumble, like so. So at any time you're doing, like a jump into a wall or into some kind of like weird corner or ceiling, just press grab and you won't stumble. You'll just be in that grab animation stuck like that until you hit the floor or water or whatever's on the ground. Now there are some special properties about the grab animation that you should know. So I'm going to show us a quick example. If I do a regular running jump, I land in the water around the white jewel area on the sides there. But if I'm in a grab animation, so I'm going to hold grab as I do this jump, you actually go further because the grab animation kind of pushes you. As you can see here, I'm like around the black area, so I'm a little bit further. And there's one more thing you should know, is that a grab animation, in that animation, you can't control her. It's kind of like when you put your arms up in the air, or when Lara does. So I can't move left and right, for example. She does that. So this is important to know because I'm going to explain fake grabs now. Suppose I want to reach the stone platform right underneath me, like underneath the platform Lara's standing on right now. Normally if you fall down, well, you don't quite make it. You can climb up here, but in some cases you can't do that. You can do a fake grab, which is basically just tapping grab to put Lara in the animation of the grab animation, but you're not going to actually grab anything, so it'll look like this. See, they just tap it once, she goes in grab animation, and she moves forward. So then you can make it. It's important to know that all these things, because I'm also going to be talking about doing fake grabs on an angle. Doing those fake grabs on an angle is very risky, and it's often very hard, if not impossible, depending on the geometry around you. So watch what happens if I try it here. So as you can see, kind of got straightened out. So originally I was facing something like this, right, like around this angle, and then I do fake grab, I fall down, but then she straightens out here, and this is because of the geometry. It kind of pushes her, because I hit the ledge, like the one I'm grabbing on right now, and I straightened out to go where I don't want to be. So in order to accomplish these angled fake grabs, you must delay your grab, but not too long, because otherwise you'll put your arms up in the air, as we discussed last section. So something like this should work. There I barely made it still. As you can see, it's pretty tricky, and the timing can be very difficult depending on the heights of the edges and so forth. I highly recommend for the fake grabs, just either when you're running or you're dropping, just do it straight on like this. This way you just do one press of the fake grab. It's very easy. This thing is often very tricky for new players because they don't understand. All you need to do is tap it, the grab. You don't need to hold on to it or do any fancy timing if your angle is straight on. You only need to do a fancy timing if you're doing an angle. But if you just do a backup like this, it's very easy. Alright, so save. Block climbing. So lots of the geometry is similar to this one in front of me. About 1 tile length. It doesn't need to be pushable even though this one is. So it's very tempting to climb this like this. This is about 3 seconds, kind of slow. It's faster if you just do a back step, jump up on top. That's about 2 seconds. There's only 1 second time save, but because this occurs in like every single level, everywhere, all the time, it adds up really quickly. Now, one kind of backup to this. So let's say you want to do this jump, but you stumble. Instead of thinking what to do after the stumble, you can just do a double roll like so. Now remember, a roll is 1 tile, so now you're in perfect position to do that standing jump. Now ideally you don't really do that double roll because it's only when you get that kind of stumble, but that'll come with time. For now, I think this is a good backup instead of trying to think of what to do, like oh, you know, do I back up, do I go forward? It's just a really quick fix on how to climb lots of blocks like these ones, and that's a really fast way to get some time save, especially when you're starting out, because it occurs so often in the run. Extended jumps. So if I do a regular running jump, grab, I'm not gonna make this, but this jump is very possible. You can do an extended jump. As the name implies, you go further than you're intended to. And one way of doing this is by delaying your grab, so you only press grab when your arms are near the ledge, and I'll show it to you like this. That. Now, not all timing is very easy, and there's a better, generally more consistent setup. All you need to do is 2 walking steps into the running jump, then hold grab. So do 1, 2, running jump, hold grab. And this is very easy. Now, these aren't the only ways to do extending jumps, but these are right now the most. I mean, the setup is most consistent, and it works for every extending jump that you're going to do in the current routes. You may have seen something similar with a standing jump, and then this is an extending jump too. It's basically the same as the double step, but I recommend the double step, assuming the geometry allows for it, which in the current route is all of them, because it's just simply faster and it's the same thing. Okay, now final advanced section is the steps. So counting walking steps, as you saw in extended jumps, is pretty simple. It's just like it's very simple because it's so slow, and then if you're going to do a running jump after, you just hold forward and jump, and it's kind of automatic. Lara does it. She takes care of herself basically. However, for running steps, it's a little bit more tricky, I suppose. So many runners, as of right now, we kind of count running steps a little bit differently sometimes, especially if you're coming from Footy's route explanation. You might hear me and him say different steps for the same thing visually. So just a word of warning that you know, if you see us say different things but do the same thing, just instead of taking it through the words, just know it visually and what we mean in a game. Now also, in this game, you might know that Laura can jump anytime she wants. For example, if I want to run and jump off this platform, she's going to just fall. And the reason for this is because from a stationary position, almost always, she needs to do a run worth 1 tile, like this. See? However, there is a way to get around that, and that is what we call the walk run jump. This is the simplest way, is simply just 1 walking step into a run, as you can see. So that's very useful because many times you'll find yourself in the middle of a block instead of figuring out what to do. Just do okay, this is actually too close. Just do a walk run, and then you'll maximize the times you jump, which of course is the fastest way. And one final thing is these kind of steps, these literal physical steps like this one, they reset your jumping sequence when Lara goes over them. So what I mean by that is watch what happens when I hold forward and jump. She moves almost 2 tiles before she's allowed to do a running jump, whereas normally, as we just discussed, it's 1. The reason is because once you cross the step, it resets her as if she's stationary again, and then you need to do 1 full tile and then do the jump. So this has some pros and cons. I'll talk about the con first, which is pretty obvious, is that you want to be jumping as much as possible, so if you have to reset like I just did there, worth 1 or 2 steps, then she's jumping less, it's less fast. However, there is a pro in that when you cross a step, it's the same every single time. So if I hold forward and jump here, I'll be the same distance every single time. Whereas, let's say I jump from here and here, it's all different, right? But if I just hold forward and running jump after the step, it'll be the same. So for certain setups and something is like that, it can be useful, but just know that it resets your steps. You're not wondering why Lara seemingly doesn't jump for like 3 tiles in a row or something like that. Okay, so in conclusion, I highly recommend you come check out our Discord. We have like every resource there. We have the live split auto splitters, the splits themselves. We have a document, Area 51, with basically every movement tech that we know of. We have lots of help available for things like routes, execution, tips and tricks, and so forth. So I highly recommend coming and checking it out if you need help. And I wouldn't worry too much if you couldn't grasp everything in this advanced section. As you probably saw, many of the movement tips and techniques and so forth, they're kind of intertwined, so you need to really get runs going, and then everything comes together at once. But yeah, I hope this video helped you out, and I'll see you in caves.